Hey y'all, it's Andrea over at Sewspire.com. Welcome and happy May to you. Today I am kicking off what I'm calling the Studio Organization and Inspiration Series. And what I hope to accomplish with this series is to give you an idea of how I organize my creative space. And then you can take that information and incorporate it as you see fit into your space. I'd like to also possibly offer you some insight into how I run my studio. I do operate a commercial studio, and then I have a home studio as well that I work out of sometimes, but I mostly maintain that creative space for when I want to do projects for our friends and family, or so with the children and such. So before I get into the studio details, I do want to tell you about a new feature that I've added to Sewspire.com that I'm really excited about. It's called Happy Mail, and what I'm going to do is every week when I produce a video, there's going to either be a handmade product that we completed, which I'm going to give away, or today we're going to have a giveaway that's a little different but related to the video today. And what you need to do is just head over to Sewspire.com. In the top navigation you'll see a link that says Happy Mail. Click on that, enter your first name and email address, and that will enter you into this and every other Happy Mail drawing from here until the end of time, right? So today's Happy Mail drawing, in case you are short on time, is going to be a priority mailbox full of top quality designer quilting scraps. And there's some bigger pieces in here. These are ideal for the patchwork projects that we do here on Sewspire. If you're a quilter, this would be like a real treasure gift for you. But my hope is that you'll be able to put those scraps to good use. I accumulate a lot of scraps, and so I either try and use them or share them, and that's what we're going to do for that. So if you'd like to enter to win, head over to Sewspire.com, first name, email address, and I will announce the winner next week. I'll also send the winner an email as well. So back to studio organization. This is my happy space here, I call it. And with all of the studios that I've designed, I added that up, 6 so far. I started originally sewing at our dining room table, and that is where I started my first company, really. Right at the dining room table. I didn't know even how to sew. Headed over to the Joann's, bought a bunch of fabric, bought the cheapest sewing machine I could. I do not suggest doing that. That was very frustrating. I quickly upgraded the machine to what we might say mid-price range, and had a lot of success with that. In just a few months' time, I had consumed the entire dining room. And so then I took over our spare bedroom, and it wasn't very long after that I took over the entire basement of our home. And then I think it was in 2011, I believe, and I started the company in 2006, so 5 years later I moved into my first commercial space, and that was a great space. It had 2 levels. It had an awesome loft that was just flooded with natural light. I loved it. And then it had a cute little downstairs lobby area, which was great for admin and shipping stuff for the business. So that was a wonderful space. And then 2 years, almost a year and a half after that, I took an even bigger risk there, and I opened up a retail shop. And I ran a little boutique for 5 years. That was a ton of fun. I met the greatest people. I learned so much about running a business. And then just almost a year ago, I did close the boutique, and I moved into this great space because I wanted to be able to dedicate more of my time to running this channel and to sharing the 11 years of sewing experience that I had acquired, and the retail aspect was not going to allow me the time that I really wanted to devote to this project. So that's how I ended up here. But I will tell you, with every space, with the exception of the dining room, which, you know, how great can you make your dining room to sew in, right? With the exception of the dining room, every space that I designed, I put the essential elements in. So I feel like there are a few essential elements that every sewing room must have in order for you to sew comfortably. At the top of that list is a sewing table. Now, I'm a little bit taller, so I like my sewing table higher up. So this is like a counter height sewing table. There are tons of tutorials on Pinterest on how you can build this. I didn't build this one. I was lucky and found it at a thrift shop. For a couple years, my daughter used it as a desk, and then when she went off to college, I was lucky to inherit it and moved it into this space. And I think the last time she was here, she said, "Mom, that's so perfect for you. I think I'm going to have to let you keep it." So I'm pretty sure it's still mine. But basically what it is 2 bookcases and then a tabletop. So I think for sure for less than $100 you could recreate something just like this. Now, why I like it is it's the right height for cutting. So if you're going to do a lot of sewing, you need to be mindful of the ergonomics and your back and fatigue like that. Because if you're not feeling comfortable, you're not really going to enjoy your time in the sewing studio. And obviously we want you to have as much fun as possible. So the height is a factor. Then it also allows me storage for my remnants on the side. You could, if you don't have a lot of remnants, you could use it for notions and things like that. So that's a first element, critical. So my table doubles as my sewing table where I keep my machine, my cutting table, and my layout table. If you have a really large space, you could actually have a cutting table, a sewing table, and a layout table. Particularly if you have a long space, that would just really be ideal. But I combine all 3 of those essential elements into one piece of furniture. The next most important component is an ironing board and an iron. I personally really like to have a full-size ironing board. If you were only working on small projects, you could probably get away with one of the miniature ones. Or if you had a super tiny space, that would be better than nothing. But it's very difficult to sew without an iron and an ironing board and keep your project nice and neat. So I have my iron and ironing board over here. The ironing board, if you have a full-size one, also offers additional layout space. If you're working on multiple projects or a large project, after you're done ironing, you can stage that project in the pieces on the ironing board. So keep that in mind. Or if you want to just pick up an ironing board like for $18 at Walmart, you could take off the cover and use that as a layout table and not an ironing board. That's a really inexpensive, great way to add portable space to your sewing room. So then after that, I have fabric storage, which I have a lot of fabric because I run a full-time sewing business. So I may have more fabric than I could possibly use in my entire lifetime, but such is the beast of this business. So up here, one of the things I love the most about this space is there's a huge loft. And I do have that full of fabric. I know. That's why we're doing the Happy Mail things. So you can see I keep the larger cuts of fabric that would otherwise be on a bolt up there folded, so I can access that. I teach sewing classes as well, so a lot of times I'll use that cut yardage for the sewing classes, particularly if they're just practicing. Then I have some bins with some scraps in it, and I have additional bins up there with scraps in them. One of my hopes this summer is that when I have my girls home, we're going to get up there and really get that organized and beautified. So that would be a whole nother video for you. Then over here on the wall, I have some bins with the fabric that I'm currently using. So when I get an order, I get a custom order from a customer, then I order the fabric and I keep that on the wall. And then along this shelf here, which I'll turn around and see, I have bins that hold additional cuts of fabric that are sized like this, and they hold the scraps. And then I do try and either use these up or give them away as soon as possible to avoid putting anything else in the attic. Then over here you can see I have my embroidery station. If you don't have an embroidery machine, then you don't have to worry about that. But you want a nice solid piece of furniture for something like an embroidery machine because it's moving and you don't want any skipped stitches. So those bookcases are perfect for that. If you have a serger, you would have the same requirements. You would need a nice solid piece of furniture to work on the serger with, because it puts off a lot of vibrations. And then over back in the corner, I have kind of my admin area where I keep my receipts and do my books, ship orders and things like that, which wouldn't apply to you if you had a home studio, unless of course you do like to really plan out your projects. You could be very detail oriented and like to keep a nice inventory of what you have on hand, journal, so forth. Then it might be nice for you to just have a desk that you could work at, and that's what I have over there. I'm just trying to think if I'm forgetting anything. Notions. I primarily make custom bags, so along this windowsill here I have these trays where I just have sorted the things that I use the most. So like, here's my labels for the bags, elastic, hook and loop tape, and then I have another tray. Oops. That has the hardware that I use for the bags and such. And the logic there is that when I'm sewing, all I have to do is reach around, so it's just convenient and everything's at hand. Now on the sewing table, I really only try to keep the essentials. Okay, so I have my different scissors here, and then I do keep a pen and a stack of Post-it notes in case I have to make notes on measurements or things like that, or want to leave a note for later. That keeps me from having to interrupt the project, and I can just make that note. Then down here, I went ahead and I installed a nail, and that holds my rulers and rotary cutter. So I keep that right there in the same spot. And then when I'm done cutting, I just return it there, and I know exactly where to find it. On this side, I have another nail, and I just keep a little reusable trash can, and when that gets full, I empty it. I have a 24-inch cutting mat here. I do have a bigger mat that I can use if I'm working on something really big, like if I were making bedding or something. And then I have a sewing machine, and that's really all I try and keep on the surface. And then, so I would cut on an order, I could turn right around, iron it, transfer that back to the layout table, sew it, and then access the various notions that I would need while I'm sewing that. And then the next element of a studio that I think is equally as important as the functional part is the inspiration, the decor that you're going to bring into your space. It really needs to be something that's going to light you up and make you want to be in the space and inspire you to create. So I only bring things into my creative space that I love. One of my favorite things is this garland here that's hanging on the wall in the fabric wreath. It's just made from scraps, but I have a great memory. I had a wonderful friend who came to work for me when I opened up my boutique, the retail boutique, and she sat in afternoons when we weren't busy and created this gorgeous garland for me and the wreath, and I just cherish it. In fact, I used to have it in the shop and everyone would try and buy it, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't sell it to you, it's too special. So I have that there, framing my board. I love quotes, so I have my bank of favorite quotes up there. I have the piece of art from a equally as talented, beautiful woman. Carrie Schmidt is her name. She's an artist. She has an amazing story if you want to check out her blog and website and follow Carrie. So I have her painting there. And then I have some little jars there that I just put only solid scraps in. Empty spools of thread, which I have to figure out something fun to do with those. And then I have my thread over there for the embroidery machine, so that's right in that area. And oh, one other thing that's interesting that you might not think. I sew on a stool. This is just like, so you have counter height bar stools and then true bar stools. So a bar stool is higher. This is a counter height bar stool. And believe it or not, I have tried all kinds of chairs. Over here I have like a super padded tall chair, and this plain wooden stool, I can sew for hours. I can sew the whole day on that. So if you're having back trouble, my first suggestion is your table's too low and you're in the wrong chair. So you can pick up those chairs all over in consignment shops for just a few bucks. So I would suggest trying that. And then let me just make sure that I haven't forgotten to tell you anything else before I just kind of take you around and let you see all the pretties and inspiration. Oh, I do want to tell you, I'm hoping too with this series to do some Facebook Live things. I've never done Facebook Live before, but if we're able to, I would love to be able to answer your studio dilemmas or questions, anything at all having to do with running either a sewing studio, setting up a sewing studio, or running a commercial studio. I'd be more than happy to help you with those questions. So stay tuned for dates for the Facebook Live things. I'm going to try and do more than one because we have a lot of international subscribers and I don't want them to miss out on that too. So if you have questions or things like that, go ahead and send them my way. You can send me an email at sewinginspiration@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on the Facebook page or Instagram page as well, and we will see how many studio design questions or dilemmas we can answer. We are also, of course, going to be making some great projects, actually sewing them that you can use in your space. I have 2 really special ones planned for sure. And then I think we're going to work in, I don't know if you saw it on Instagram, I made this little stuffed dog for the sewing class I teach, and everybody wants a tutorial for that. So I think we'll call him the studio mascot, and we'll also make that just for fun too. So at least 3 great sewing projects, which I will give away all of them in the Happy Mail. So don't forget to register. And I think that's it. I have some notes though, I just want to make sure so we don't forget anything important here. Oh, I did forget one aspect of a sewing studio that really is critical: lighting. I know I've sewed in all different types of lighting. My least favorite was the basement with no natural light. I found that to be very depressing actually, but in a way it was a blessing because that was my catalyst to move out of the basement, which if I had never left the house I wouldn't be where I am now. So I am glad that I did that, but if any way possible, I think you'll enjoy your space a lot more if you can get a space that has a window. In the event that you can't, a space is better than no space at all. So just be very mindful of your lighting. And ironically, my big light that's way up there burnt out this morning. So I have to climb up there and fix that later today. But lighting is super important when you're looking at a space or trying to establish a space. You of course can use artificial lighting if needed, but do pay attention that you have good lighting in your space. Okay, let's see if there's anything else. When you're setting up your space, this is important. Create a map on paper. Write everything out on paper and then work in sections. Otherwise it can be totally overwhelming. So even when I rearrange this space, I get out a piece of paper and I draw it out and I put function first, of course, because it has to function. For example, if I were sewing here and the notions were all the way over there, that would just make no sense. Every time I needed a piece of elastic or a tri-glide, I would have to get up and walk all the way across. So really think about function. Keep the space that you need while you're sewing, the things that you need within arm's reach, and everything else can have a different place. So that's important. Write it out. In the event that you have a sewing room, and I've been here before too, and it's completely overrun and totally out of control, and maybe things that don't belong in there have made their way in, I will call that reclaiming your sewing space. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to create a map and design the space in your mind and on paper. If possible, empty the entire room out. If not, which it might not be possible, work one section at a time. So set up your fabric remnants in one section, your ironing section, then your fabric notions, then maybe your sewing table. You can work in any order you like, but if you work one section at a time, that's helpful. And you must, again, have a map so you can keep going back to that plan. Let's see here. And I will follow up on that sewing room, reclaiming your sewing room too, because I really do think that that is a major concern for a lot of folks, is that they have a creative space, but it's gotten out of control and they don't enjoy being in there. I have visions of my grandmother's room. Bless her, I had two grandmothers. One, a very accomplished seamstress, and the other one loved to sew, but filled her room to the sky with stuff, so she couldn't get in there and use it because the thought of having to clean it just kept her out. So I don't want to see that happen to anybody. So I'm happy to help with that too. If you want to send me photos or videos of your sewing space, I would be absolutely delighted to design the space for you. No charge, just for me, honestly, it's fun. So if you want to send a video, you can post a video on the Sewspire Facebook page. We can get input from our community members. It really could be a lot of fun for you and for us too. You can post photos, whatever works for you, but have that Facebook page set up so you can do that. So feel free to, let's see. I think we're good. That's awesome. So I'm very, very excited about this. Organization, sewing, women in business, my passion. And I'm happy to share any knowledge I have with you. So until next time, please know the creative genius in me salutes the creative genius in you. Have a beautiful day, everyone. All right, this is my studio. Here's the dog that we're gonna make, which we're gonna call our studio mascot. Here's some little giveaways that I have coming for you later. This is my little office area here. I really try not to bring anything into the space that doesn't inspire me. If it doesn't inspire me, it's out or it never comes in. Some little overflow notion storage here. Got the zippers, extra labels, needles, hardware. All my threads for the embroidery machine. And then these bookcases here offer me tons of storage, and then behind these I have extra storage. Those bins are all full of goodies. I got a little dry erase board over there when I'm trying to sketch out some stuff. I can work there from that. The notion storage. I love to keep plants in the studio. Here's the desk here. If you can see, I have the fabric folded nice there, and that's all heavier weight ticking that I use for these organizers, one of which we're gonna make. And these bins here are reserved exclusively for the fabric that I have to work with for my custom orders over at Watermelon Wishes. My daughter Megan painted me the Mad Hatter and I adore it, and it's probably my favorite piece of inspiration in the entire studio. Then these are the bins with the extra fabric, which you can enter to win. Got a little chair there I covered. And that's my space. I'll just spin you around one more time nice and slow so you can see it all.